Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to Online Anatomy Lab. This week we're going to be actually covering 3 different labs. Typically we'd like to spread out the muscle stuff just because it's so much information, but we're going to be doing it all in a week. So there's lectures from last semester posted on some of the material. So I'm not going to go too into depth on a lot of the stuff. Really, I want to make this video because none of the other lectures that were recorded from previous TAs show the actual muscles on the models. And on the quiz, there will be pictures of the models and different muscles labeled. So I want to make sure you guys have a chance to actually see the models and me like kind of manipulate them, so it kind of makes hopefully a little bit more sense for you. So muscle identification is all I'm going to be focusing on in this lecture. I think Zach from last semester recorded a lecture for muscle anatomy and muscle actions, so watch those as well. That stuff's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a lot of information, but it's mostly just memorization. So take a look at those lectures, but for the quiz and for the final, I would recommend just having really good, really detailed, organized notes. Since you can use notes, you don't technically have to memorize all this information that you typically would have to. So I would just go through honestly and make sure everything's really organized. You organize it in a way that's really easy for you to go back and figure out where stuff is, the information that you need. So really identifying, I think, is kind of the most important aspect of this week. Knowing origins and insertions, again, is just memorization. And then actions of muscles kind of makes sense, just kind of intuitively. Again, watch Zach's lectures, and I would recommend, there's a Word document at EduCat you can print off. There's actually 2, one for origin insertion, one for action. They can fill in. That's organized by where the muscle's at and that type of thing. So I would do that. Again, this video I'm just going to go through all the muscles on the models and hopefully make it so you guys can see everything. My PowerPoint is also going to be posted. That has just all the muscles labeled with pictures of the models. So those pictures will probably be pretty similar for what you're going to see on the quiz. So I'm just going to go through and use that as a reference to make sure that I cover all the muscles. So we're going to start with the muscles of the head, face and head. Sorry, this chair is really squeaky. So a lot of these on the face and head, if you remember the names of the bones, you already probably know the names of the muscles. Hi, Stella. Stella likes this guy. Want to see? Okay, look. You like it, Stella? Yes. Okay. What do you think? Okay. Sorry. So, did I zoom in? Oops. Okay. So face, starting with covering the frontal bone. This muscle here is your frontalis. Okay. On the side of the head, covering your temporal bone, is your temporalis. Okay. And then down here on your neck, this long muscle that extends from your sternum to your mastoid process of your temporal bone is the sternocleidomastoid. That one is one of my favorites. The name explains where it's at, and those are also the origins and insertions of that muscle. Okay, so that wraps around kind of the side of your neck there. You have some round muscles in your face. So you have a round muscle around your eyes, both of them, and a muscle around your mouth. And those would be your orbicularis, which just means round muscle. So orbicularis oculi is around your eye. Orbicularis oris, think like oral, is around your mouth. Before we get too far too, I just want to point out that on these models that we have, you can see that they're not symmetrical. right? So on the left side of this model, this side, an extra layer of tissue has been removed, right? So this white that you're seeing is the bone. So what the people who made this model did is just took off the most superficial layer so they can see the deeper muscles. So you can see in this little Oompa Loompa too, right? We'll get here in a minute. But this is your pectoralis major. This side, you can see the ribs, right? That's because the pectoralis major is taken off. So this side over here is going to be the deeper side where you can see the bones, you can see some of the deeper muscles. The stuff on this side is going to be more superficial, okay? Obviously, in your body, you have like some symmetry going on. You're going to have the same muscles on both sides, okay? Some other muscles of the face. This Z-shaped muscle is your zygomaticus, over there. Deep to that, so what number does that say? 13 it says in there. Between your zygomaticus, this little guy is your buccinator. On this other side, your zygomaticus is taken off and you can see the buccinator really well, right? So this over here is the buccinator, and then deep to the zygomaticus is your buccinator. And then you also have your masseter, which is this big muscle kind of at the back of your jaw. That's the main muscle in mastication, which is chewing. So it's a very thick muscle that just goes up and down vertically, helps you chew. Okay, that's everything on the head that you need to know. Pretty straightforward. Moving on to some of these other guys. Let's see. Okay, so to start, you have a muscle that covers like your shoulder cap over here. This is your deltoid. Okay, your big pec major on your chest, you have your pectoralis major, which is this larger one. Deep to that, so if you take the pectoralis major off, this little guy on this side is the pectoralis minor, right? So this would be underneath the pectoralis major. Anytime you see major and minor, major is always going to be a bigger muscle, minor is going to be a smaller one. So pectoralis major, pectoralis minor. If we move to the side here, you can see it on both sides. You can see over here, these muscles, and then also I'm just going to show you on this side because it might be a little bit easier. These muscles over here, those are your serratus anterior. And if you get, hopefully this is not too wobbly. I'm going to show you on this side. So see, these here are your serratus anterior. And I remember they kind of look like a serrated like knife, you know, with the little ridges. So serratus anterior are those guys there. Okay. Between your ribs, you have some muscles as well. It's kind of hard to do. Sorry if this is making you dizzy. Right, so between your ribs, you have what are called the intercostal muscles. Remember, the cartilage of the ribs is called your costal cartilage. So between the costals, between the ribs, is your intercostal muscles. So there's two of them. Well, there's multiple between each rib, but in each rib you have two. You have the internal intercostal, which is more medial towards the sternum. So where it says like 21 right here, I don't know if you can see that, but that is your internal intercostal. And then you also have an external intercostal. And this one's kind of harder to see, but it's just this little nubbin on the outside. You can see it in all the ribs, and this is going to be more lateral. So internal, medial, external, lateral. Those both help in breathing. Ooh. Next up, the other muscle that we need in order to breathe is our diaphragm. Let's see. Oh, it is in here. Nice. So the diaphragm, most of these models are all broken and bad. But the diaphragm sits right under the lungs. So here we have our lungs, obviously. In 208, you'll learn more about those. But the diaphragm is going to be the muscle that sits directly underneath them. So you can see the front edge of it here, right above the liver. If you take this out without everything collapsing, oops, I was close. So So it sits, like you can see here, right on top of your liver. This is your liver. We've talked about that in the first week. You can see the gallbladder on it, right? So the diaphragm sits directly on top of your liver, like a little hat. But this is what it looks like. Kind of weird looking thing when it's not in the body, but that's your diaphragm. Okay. Next we have our abdominal muscles. So I'm going to show you on this that I just took off. So our abdominal muscles, obviously in our abdomen area, there's a bunch of them you need to know. So the first one, your major like six-pack muscle, what you're like really working out if you're doing crunches, the muscles that people like typically associate with being, you know, your abdominal muscles is your rectus abdominis. So those are these. You also have your transverse abdominis, so that's going to be deeper. So if you look on the inside of here, your transverse abdominis are going to be the muscles that are running in the transverse plane in here. So this whole most internal layer of your abdominal wall is your transverse abdominis. And it's called transverse because, again, those fibers are running in a transverse plane, which is going to be parallel to the ground, right? So rectus abdominis, transverse abdominis. Then you also have two oblique muscles, an external and an internal. External is going to be more superficial. So even if you don't remember which one's which, if you know that this side with the pectoralis major is the more superficial side, then this is going to be your external oblique. This side, your external oblique is taking off, and you can see your internal oblique. Okay, so look at the rest of the model in order to determine which side's external and what side's internal oblique. They do run in different directions. So if you look at the fibers, they run different ways, but the easiest way to tell which is just what side's more superficial, external, what side's more deep, and that's gonna be your internal. Okay, good so far. Any questions? Okay, so that is your face and the front of your body. We're gonna move on to the back of the body. Hopefully you guys can all see this. Okay, so the back of the body, let's see. I think that should be a good show. So the first muscle in the back here is your trapezius. It's going to be this big like kite trapezoid shaped guy from the base of your skull to your shoulder and then down your back. So this whole big triangle, again, it's going to be on this side as well, but it's taken off because this side is the deeper side, right? So trapezius there. You have two rhomboid muscles, which are deep to your trapezius. So trapezius. So deep to that over here, you can see the two rhomboids. Again, a major and minor. Major is going to be larger, minor is going to be smaller. So this is your rhomboid major. Large rhombus shaped guy. Rhomboid minor is a smaller one up top. Okay? But rhomboid major, rhomboid minor, both deep to your trapezius. On the back of the neck, we talked about the sternocleidomastoid. On the front of the neck, the back of the neck, you have the muscle that's called your levator scapulae. It runs to the side here. I can show you on this guy. So where it says 21 is your levator scapulae. So kind of like your sternocleidomastoid, but on the back. It attaches to your scapula, and its action is to elevate your scapula. So levator, elevate, scapula. Okay. We also have two spinatus muscles, if you want to call them that. So hold on 1 second. So in the skeletal system, we talked about the scapula, right? You know, this is the spine of the scapula. This is your supraspinous, above the spine, fossa. This is your infraspinous fossa. So this would be like over here, right? So this white part that you see here is the spine of your scapula. And you have, in your supraspinous fossa, your supraspinatus muscle. So this here is your supraspinatus. Below it is your infraspinatus. So your infraspinatus sits in your infraspinous fossa. So if you remember those terms, you should know supraspinatus and infraspinatus down there. We have some teres muscles, so you can see it better on this side. So we have, let me see if I can get closer for you. So this is just another view of your infraspinatus, right below the spine. These two little nubbins are your teres muscle. So this bigger one is your teres major. This little one is your teres minor. Okay. And then the last muscle that kind of goes up here. So remember, supraspinous, infraspinous fossa, and then this is your subscapular fossa. On the inside of your arm, sorry, we have our arm, supraspinous, infraspinous, and that subscapular fossa, we have our subscapularis, right? So that would be right on the inside of the scapula. Subscapularis. Okay? Along our spine, we have a number of different vertical muscles known as the erector spinae muscles. So this is your spine, right? So these muscles go up and down the length of your spine and help maintain posture. You can only see it on the models in this little section right there. But in reality, there's multiple different little pieces of this that go all along your spine. And then another big back muscle. So trapezius is one I would consider a big back muscle. The other big back muscle is the big back muscle on your lower back, and that's your latissimus dorsi. Think dorsal, your dorsal side is your back side, right? Latissimus dorsi is the dorsal back muscle, big back muscle. Okay, so trapezius and then latissimus dorsi over here. Okay, so that is all of the muscles that are on your trunk. Right, so head and then trunk we covered. So now moving on to our arm and leg muscles. So let me get this arm back. I think this will be a little bit easier maybe that I can show you. Okay, so this here would be our left arm, like this, because we have, well, obviously it's gonna be like in the back, kind of. But we have our deltoid at the top, which we've already talked about. Our supraspinatus, infraspinatus, which we've already talked about, and our subscapularis. So those are kind of the muscles of our shoulder. But then there's muscles on our actual arm that we need to know as well. So right now this arm is in the anatomical position, so the palm facing forward. So what's lateral here, right, is going to be lateral in the anatomical position. So radius here on your thumb side would be this guy here. So let's see, up top, the big muscle that hopefully everyone already knows. This big guy is your biceps brachii. So if I hold the arm like this, right on this most, it's going to be actually the most lateral because I'm not in the anatomical position. But this top guy here is the biceps brachii. That's like your major gun show muscle, right? If you're flexing for someone, that's the biceps brachii. So kind of on the top portion of your arm there is your biceps brachii. Its action is forearm flexion, right? So bending that forearm. Anything that flexes is going to decrease the angle at a joint. Extension is going to increase the angle at a joint. Okay, so biceps brachii, forearm flexion. If we look lateral to that, it's kind of hard to show on a freaking camera. So biceps brachii, if we turn this a little bit, so now the thumb's kind of pointing at you, on the lateral aspect is your brachialis. So if you're looking at your biceps brachii, it would kind of be like behind on this side, right? Biceps brachii in the top, kind of lateral to the edge is your brachialis. So this guy here is your brachialis. Biceps brachii, brachialis. And then the whole bottom side of your arm, so you can see biceps brachii, this whole bottom side is your triceps brachii. So that If biceps over here, brachialis is over here, your triceps brachii is kind of the bottom aspect of your arm down here. So like old people, when they get that flab down there, it's not actually the muscle, it's probably just skin, but think about like the old people flab is your triceps, right? So your biceps are forearm flexion, your triceps are forearm extension, right? So those are antagonists, they do opposite actions. Okay, and then the other muscle, that I want to talk about that works together with your biceps brachii and your brachialis is this guy that wraps from your elbow down to your thumb. So if you look at this side, from your elbow here, this whole muscle down to your thumb is your brachioradialis. And it's on your thumb side, it's by your radius. Okay, so that's why it's called brachioradialis. So that one functions in forearm flexion as well. Kind of probably hard to see on this. There's a lot of muscles that we're gonna skip that you don't need to know. Your book goes into way more detail. But biceps brachii, brachialis, brachioradialis, and then on the bottom, triceps brachii. And the triceps, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but there's actually 3 different heads of it. So there's different kind of clumps of muscles, but they're collectively the triceps brachii. Okay, and then the last 2 muscles in your forearm that you need to know. So we do have our brachioradialis coming down, but then you have a flexor digitorum, superficialis, and an extensor digitorum. So those are going to be the muscles on your either side of your wrist, if you want to call it that. So on the anterior side, in anatomical position, is your flexor digitorum. So technically it's this little muscle between these guys. I do not know what those are, but if anything's labeled like down on the anterior portion of your wrist, that is your flexor digitorum superficialis. The other side, this would be your extensor digitorum. So those either flex your fingers or extend your fingers, right? Digitorum, think your digits. And I remember which is which, because if you think of your arm like flexing, whatever, biceps brachii is flexing your forearm, but when you do that, you kind of like do that with your hand, or I don't know, I don't flex often, but I do that with my hand, and that kind of makes like this side tight, right? So that's your flexor digitorum superficialis. And if you think about extending your arm, which I do this for, this arm extension, let's say, then you're kind of like flex, extend, looking at the other side, this back side. So this wrist back side of your hand is the extensor digitorum. So flexor digitorum and extensor digitorum. Hard to show on camera, and I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I think. This, I think, makes a lot more sense in person, so I am genuinely sorry that you're virtually learning muscles. Again, make sure you have good notes, highlight stuff in your book. Your book has more stuff labeled than you need to know, so I would recommend going through and like actually physically highlighting just the terms that you need to know, so that on the quiz, it's saying, what is this? And you look at your book and you can't tell if it's pointing at this or pointing at that. Chances are there's only one thing of those that you need to know. And if you write a term that's something that you didn't need to know, it's going to be wrong, obviously. Okay. That's your arm muscles. We're going to take a quick Stella break. No. Stella also has a biceps and a triceps, and is the cutest little pupper. What do you think, Stella? You say hi to the class? Okay, and then all we have left is the legs. She's very comfy. Ready to put down now? Okay. Say goodbye. Say goodbye. Yeah, say goodbye. Okay. Oh gosh. 50 pounds of chunk. You're chunky. Okay, last thing, leg. Oh God. starting with the butt muscles. Who loves a good butt muscle, hey? You have our gluteus maximus, which is our big booty muscle. Let's look at this guy's wagon. Gluteus maximus, big butt muscle, the main component of your wagon. And then you have a gluteus medius, which you can kind of see peeking through there. If you take your big gluteus maximus off, this muscle is your gluteus medius. You can also see it on kind of on the side of this guy. You also have a gluteus minimus, not on your terms list, not something you need to know, so never say anything's your gluteus minimus because it's going to be wrong. Okay, so that's your butt muscles. You also have, this is so hard to show. Okay, let's see. So butt muscles. On the front side of your leg, so this is your front leg, on kind of like the lateral top aspect, so it'd be like on the outside of your hips on either side. This muscle is called your tensor fascia latae, which is my absolutely favorite muscle name and one of my favorite muscles. So here's your butt, quad muscles, and then your tensor fascia latae. I remember this because if you're in line at Starbucks waiting for your latte, your coffee, and it's taking forever because Starbucks is so slow and everyone has to wear a mask, so it's just so annoying, so frustrating. If you're waiting for your latte and you're pissed and you put out your hip to the side and are stomping your foot because you don't have your latte, that on the outside of your hip is your tensor fascia latae. Okay? So that's how you should remember that. Okay, it's gonna be really hard to see all these. Next we have our medial aspect of our legs. So this is the front, this is gonna be the lateral side, right? So this on the inside of our leg is the medial side. So if I flip this around, you can kind of see, right? So this is on the inside of the leg, right? So where your thighs are rubbing together in your shorts or whatever. Okay, so this main big guy is your gracilis. You have two adductor muscles, an adductor magnus, which is this thick boy, which is going to be more posterior towards your butt, and your adductor longus, which is going to be this more anterior guy towards the front of your leg. So gracilis, adductor magnus, the thick boy, adductor longus, the longer one. And then we also have kind of wrapping around our whole inside of our leg. So you can see him wrapping around front to back. This is your sartorius, that long string bean. And that guy is the longest muscle in your body and another one of my favorites. I like the leg muscles a lot, but okay, so sartorius, that guy there. So again, you can see the sartorius from the front, right? It's gonna be wrapping around the medial aspect of our leg. On the very front of our leg, we have our quadricep muscles, right? So your front of your thigh, let's say, or quads. There's 4 of them, quad 4. So we have the main guy in the middle here is your rectus femoris. Femoris is by your femur, right? So rectus femoris. Then we have 3 vastus muscles. We have our vastus medialis, which can be on the medial aspect of our leg. So this guy here, vastus medialis. Vastus lateralis on the lateral aspect of our leg. And then deep to our rectus femoris, we have our vastus intermedius. Okay, so rectus femoris is the main quad muscle. We have vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, and vastus intermedius. Hamstrings on the back of our leg. I mean, kind of the opposite of our quads, right? Kind of do opposite things. Oops. These ones are going to be really hard to see because they're hard to see in person, but I'll do my darndest. So quads on the front, on the back is our hamstring. So there's going to be 3 of them. I hate these models. Okay. Hamstrings in the back. So you can see this one is just one big chunk. That is our biceps femoris. biceps femoris in the back. You can see this guy, which is more medial, has two sections. So this is our semimembranosus and okay. So we have our hamstrings in the back. Biceps femoris is this guy, which is going to be more lateral, so towards our pinky toe. The more medial side here, we have our semimembranosus and semitendinosus. So our semimembranosus is going to be this little string boy, which is most medial. Semimembranosus, most medial. Semitendinosus is going to be this thicker one. Okay? Almost done. Bottom of the leg. Here's our foot. Oops. I keep dropping that. Here's our foot. So you can see this white part here is our bone, and that's our tibia, right? Our fibula is the little lateral one. Our tibia, this one is the medial one. So directly in front of our tibia, we have our tibialis anterior, right? To the front of the tibia, anterior, tibialis anterior. I've said that like 5 times. And then our calf muscles on the back of our leg. And so here's our foot, our big toe, so this is kind of the medial view, our tibia. We have our main calf muscle, has 2 parts here. That's our gastrocnemius, main calf muscle. And then, if you kind of look to the side, you can see there's like a sliver of a muscle underneath. That's the soleus. So if you take off the whole calf, gastrocnemius, and then this entire inner side of this calf, take this off, you can see it as well, is the soleus. Kind of hard to show. I'm sorry if this is impossible to see, but soleus on the inside there. And that is it. Those are all the muscles you need to know. So on the quiz, there will be pictures of all of these muscles asking for you to identify them. Remember, spelling counts. Write the most simple name that you can, so not the soleus muscle, just write soleus, otherwise it'll mark you wrong. But besides that, you need to know origins, insertions, and actions as well. So again, watch Zach's lectures. They should do a good enough job explaining all of that. That's what the classes last semester got. I don't really remember, honestly, right now what they're like. If you have questions, let me know. I'd be happy to Zoom office hours with everyone. I haven't gotten any requests to like meet or talk about anything. No one's come to office hours yet, so I guess just let me know if you guys want to chat, need help. If you want me to come in and show you the actual models like on Zoom, I'd be happy to do that as well. Just let me know ahead of office hours so I can come into school so I can show you the models, because obviously I don't have these at my house. Okay, that's it for muscle anatomy. Also this week we have a muscle physiology lab, so lots of information. Have fun with that. Let me know if you have any questions.